stand on the porch and give some advice or something like that. I really think the teachers are going to really pull through and show their worth, and again, hoping that they get paid for their efforts, because they already don't get paid enough to do what they were doing before, let alone all this turnaround, retooling, figuring things out and stuff.
Oh, 100%. I was in the shower today because it's the one moment where, like, it's quiet and there's nobody asking anything from me. So I do love my showers. And I remember distinctly thinking while in the shower, like, how many hundreds of dollars should I be putting on a gift card for each of the teachers when they do finally get back to school? Because it's what we're finding and what we're seeing is actually the opposite of what we would think would be happening at this time. So, you know, all of us homeschooling moms right now are basically saying that teachers are literally the most important people in the country. They are literally the people who maintain my sanity, and I didn't even know it. Like, I always loved teachers. I've always appreciated them. But I never kind of realized how, like, personally important it was for me to be able to do what I do without having to homeschool my children, right? And so on the same token, these teachers are having their wages frozen. They are having their entire school budgets removed and repurposed for other kind of, you know, whatever government decides to repurpose it for. And education, once again, is taking a backseat to all of these other economic, initiatives that people are finding, or that I say people, but like legislators and governing bodies are determining to be of greater importance than our schools. And that is really super frustrating to me, and I'm sure teachers as well. But we have a tendency to prioritize the economy and not, it's almost like short-term, long-term, right? So there's an article in the Tennessee, and it's an opinion piece right now, that talks about how in Nashville we've been, in the country probably, but we've had this unprecedented boom in the economy, and we've had a ton of growth, and a lot of that is done on the backs of the government policies allowing businesses to go in for, reduced taxes, financial incentives to, build businesses in certain districts as they're trying to gentrify them or, create new epicenters of business. And now they are begging for bailouts, but they had no problems taking the government's money to build their business, but then they didn't run their business in a way that would ensure its viability in the case of, literally any even moderate, unexpected situation. And I say that as someone who runs a business and did run her business in a way that even now, 8 weeks, 9 weeks after my last event, I'm still paying rent, I'm still paying utilities, I still have a buffer of savings that is enabling me to, survive this situation despite not being approved for PPP or any of the EIDL loans. So I'm a little overcritical of business owners, but because I myself know that you need to prepare for worse, it's just like your own finances. They say 3 months worth of, savings in cases, of that you wouldn't necessarily predict. Like, businesses have a responsibility to, I personally think their employees and everyone else, that their first instance in something like this isn't to ask the government for a bailout. And I think the airplane companies are like day 2 of this situation, and they were demanding a bailout. That's a poorly run company, if you ask me. If on day 2 you're already needing funding. But anyways, all of that is to say that, we prioritize economic growth, but not in a stable manner. And education is like one of those things that if you invest in it, it will give back tenfold. You just have to play the long game. And we as Americans, one, we're very short-sighted when we're in the voting booth. And 2, we are so individualistic that it is almost offensive and gross that we are so inner focused at us, our situation, what we need individually, and not what the community needs, what the American people as a whole, would benefit from. And how many times have you heard, people are like, well, we're going to, thinking about forgiving student loan debt. And then you've got these other people who pop in, what about my student loan debt? I paid it off. What about mine? I didn't ever take it. Do I get a check? It's like, look, I know this feels like really ugly for you because you don't get the money. But can you imagine a scenario where this, 25-year-old who just graduated with a ton of medical debt doesn't have to live with $1,500 in student loans for the next 30 years? Like how they could give back to their community. They could buy a house. They could buy, this whole engine that we have is based on people spending money. But, this person is spending it all on student loans because they want to practice medicine and save you from a heart attack in, 10 years.
Yes, I can see how that would absolutely stimulate the economy in a big, big way. And that would be an amazing, wonderful feat if we could get rid of debt like that for a large majority of the people who are in their work mode, in the place to buy their first home, in their place to potentially have their first child. They should be able to, if they want to, do that and not be saddled down with a $150,000 loan just for their education, and then you often can't find a job. Yes, we absolutely need to do something about that. And I think to satiate the people who paid off their loan or didn't go to college and didn't have a loan, I think to satiate those people, we could make some moves and bends like not pushing college down people's throats, looking at why it's so expensive, doing some movement around how we sell and distribute college, and really start pushing, if the student is into it, trade schools, opening up that space. Sure. So there's choices so people don't go in, spend $60,000 and not touch that degree when they're done because they're not really interested in it or there's no jobs or whatever. I think some of those people would be satiated if there were some terms, limits, something put in place so it's not so rampant, because clearly a lot of people got duped in that space. A lot of people got a good education and great job, but some people got duped.
Yeah, and
so
I think
it would be nice to fix that up.
I think what we need to do is take a real good look. Like you said, I'm a huge fan of trade schools. Mm-hmm. I also think we need to take a real hard look at the entire process, and that's a whole other show. But, you basically graduate. I was 17 when I graduated. I think most people are usually 18 when they graduate high school. But then I'm making decisions about colleges and loans and all of these, financial decisions. And you know what I didn't take in high school? I didn't take business, finance. I didn't take any of that because it wasn't offered. Was there, a math class? Yes, but nobody's talking to our high schoolers about the impact. And a lot of people say, well, that's the parents' job. Well, guess what? What if your parents are just as bad with money as you turn out to be?
Because they didn't learn either.
They didn't learn it either. And why? Because we do not prioritize education in this country. We almost never have. I mean, it used to be a luxury to go to school. Yeah. It used to be one of those things where you had to choose, do I work in the farm or do my parents let me go to school, right? And only upper-class people were able to afford to not be working all the time. And we have just kept that. And so now here we are with an undereducated population where the people who then decide to spend huge amounts of money to get educated are shamed because then they have debt they have to pay off in an economy which, by the way, plummeted in 2007 and 2008, plummeted again now, right? And so the people, I graduated with my master's degree in 2007. So the awesome market that I was supposed to enter with my master's degree, gone. And then, people went back to school because they couldn't find a job. So they're like, well, maybe if I had a better education, I would be more marketable, more employable. So they go and take on more debt. And, it's a vicious, ugly cycle, and it starts way before people decide to sign on the dotted line for those loans. And it's all part, in my opinion, of this individualism that we carry as a country that you worry about you, I'll worry about me, but I'm not going to bend over backwards to make sure your kids are educated. I'm going to put, my kids over here in this $50,000 a year private school because I want to make sure that they have the best jobs, and I want to make sure that they get the best education. And I'm going to move out into the suburbs so that all of my money that affords me this $50,000 luxury of private school gets taken out of your school district because this is an urban center, and I want better opportunity for my children. And so then we end up with these priority school districts that are underfunded, and then we have these teachers who are basically volunteering and sometimes paying to be at work because they care about the mission. And we're the greatest, most wealthy country in the world, right? Like, this does not feel like the decisions that should be made in the greatest, wealthiest country in the world.
No, they don't feel like the choices that should be being made. And it reminds me of the old saying of penny wise, dollar foolish. They're trying to invest and keep that economy that just keeps crashing, taping it up, band-aiding it up, and giving energy and money to that, while not investing in the most important commodity we have, which are the people's health, education, right, and wellness, we'll call it.
Right.
So yes, penny wise, dollar foolish, dumping into this economy that's just a broken down hoopty and not putting money where it belongs, which are to some of the most superior people, in my opinion, on the planet right now. Social workers, teachers, nurses, anyone who works in the public in that space should be paid for it. And I don't know if you read this article, but in Cape Cod, East Coast, there was a story featured, and a ice cream shop opened up. I think it was on Friday, might have opened up on Friday. And this ice cream shop was excited to get back to work, and they had some of their best workers on, and one of the gals who was the front of the staff had worked there for 3 years, so she was probably some sort of leader in some way, but she quit that day because people were screaming obscenities to her that made truckers blush. I mean, the owner of the ice cream shop said he heard it with his own ears and had to come down and close everything down. And the caption was, people have been in quarantine for 2 months, don't know how to act when they get out. And so this young girl was just working her way into getting into college. I don't even think she had started yet. Maybe she had, but she was working toward getting to college, quit that day after working there for 3 years because of the way she was treated, and probably has some psychological issues or post-traumatic stress disorder from it.
Oh.
But since then, she was donated $30,000 by random people. So maybe she'll get that first year of college taken care of, and she can figure out the second year as she goes. But I thought that was just absurd, and it's disgusting the way humans are acting, and we better watch ourselves before we get out of hand and start acting barbaric, which from the sounds of it, we're already acting that way in certain situations. Why would you scream at a teenage girl about your fucking ice cream? Are you kidding me? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Anytime you feel like raising your voice at somebody who only makes $8 an hour, check it and take it somewhere else, because it's not that kid's fault.
I think that on that note, it's like if we were to build a better tomorrow based on what we are learning from where we're sitting today, it's that everything from education to business to the economy, it needs to be less about this individualist mindset that we have. Like, that person felt justified to scream at that teenager because it was all about that person. And that's basically the culture that we live in. It's all about you. It's all about me. It's all about the individual. And so if we're going to have a brighter tomorrow, we need to start thinking on a community and, collective level.
I love it, and I think you just planned our next show for us. Next week we'll go into some community and behaviors, and we'll probably touch back on some business since we didn't get a chance to cover it all. But we are at the end of our show. This is Downward Dogma. We are a part of the Third Eye Political Radio Network. Find us on any major podcast app. We're here every Tuesday. You'll find myself, Jennie McDaniel, and Sarah Murphy. Again, we are Downward Dogma, and we appreciate you, and we will have a commercial to find our way out. Until next time.
You're listening to Third Eye Political Radio. and we really